Here's what we're talking about next. Are y'all ready? We're talking about full access, full potential, and why visibility into your portfolio matters for maximizing dealer profitability. And it's your portfolio reassurance that matters. So, to help lead that conversation, please do me a favor. The other rule, it's like an unspoken rule because you guys should already know it. The other rule is anybody that I introduce on stage, you clap for them like it's your personal family member, friend, or someone that you've known your whole life. All right, with that being said, please help me in welcoming up Rich Brady, who is the Vice President, General Manager of Zurich Direct Markets. Let's welcome him to the stage. Come on up. Enjoy, stage is yours.
Thanks and good afternoon. My name's Rich Brady, Vice President, General Manager for Zurich Direct Markets. Pleasure to be here. Joining me on stage today are a couple of our long-term F&I partners and industry leaders, Fletcher Flower, the Flower Motor Organization, and Tom Bloomfield of the Don Thornton Organization. Thank you both for being here. Also joining me today is one of my Zurich colleagues, Dan Moed. He's our National Profit Solutions Manager and an expert in the field of profit participation programs. Dan, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
C-suite leaders in our industry measure net every month, and while that number may vary depending on makes and models, NADA's benchmark data is around 4%. The focus of today's discussion is, do you have that same rigor in your profit participation programs? We recognize that profit participation is a significant part of your overall profitability strategy. So what we're talking about is, do you have something similar to a net analysis, what we'll call a return on profit, that you measure on a regular basis as it relates to your reinsurance program? Essentially, how much of every dollar of premium that gets seeded into your program do you retain as profit after you've paid your claims, taxes, and fees? And what do you use to measure that, to drive those numbers, and to have the ability to control those losses? So what we're going to talk about is access to data that allows you to do that. And we're going to start with a simple question. If net on sales is a metric that you both track on a regular basis, if we agree then that the reinsurance portfolio is also a significant part of your profitability strategy, what are you doing to measure that and drive that profitability on a regular basis? So Tom, let's start with you. When you think about your reinsurance program, how critical is it for you to have some sort of equivalent, reliable measure to track your return on premium? And what visibility do you have to allow you to drive that?
I think it's very important. When we started our program over 10 years ago, we wanted to be sure we were offering a product to the customers that was similar with coverage to what we had before. And we want to be sure that our loss ratios and our pricing stays in line as costs grow, as labor rates grow, as parts costs grow. So we review the data every 6 months and be sure that we make any adjustments necessary to see kind of what our loss ratio is, which would create that kind of return on premium number that we kind of keep an eye on.
And the access to that data that allows you to do that, how do you find that? Where do you find your access to measuring that?
Well, that's the softball. So Zurich has a lovely portal that it allows us to log in and see all of our different business units and how they're performing individually against the loss ratios on all our voluntary protection products. So we can see, as trends move, we can see those numbers, and then we can ask guys like Dan, what do we need to do here? Do we need to make an adjustment here? Can we wait another 6 months? Because we want to be priced competitively, of course, but we also want to be sure we're around to pay the claims, in the future.
Yeah. Fletcher, similar. How often are you accessing that? What are important metrics that you're tracking? How do you use that to drive decision making in your organization?
So, I probably go into the portal monthly and look at those numbers. Usually, I would say by the 5th or 6th of the month, I have last month's numbers. I can go look at them, and it's kind of sorted by a month to date, a year to date, and an inception to date type of format. So I go in and look at those every month.
So you bring up a good point, because that sort of granularity of data allows you to dive deeper than just surface level. An example of that would be, rather than just seeing a VSC line item, it gets broken out into subsets of that, new and used, and over 100,000 mile, that type of thing. Are you doing that at that level of detail and on a store by store basis then?
Yeah, so I can go into each of our stores. We have 4 different stores. Look at each store individually, and it starts with new, used. We have a product out there that we call the Flower Promise, and so that's broken out as it's a limited warranty. It's a 6-month, 6,000 mile, and we track those and make sure that all of our different products in those categories on a month to month, yearly basis, whether we're offering products that make sense for us and if it's working for the customer.
Tom, thinking about that and what Fletcher just shared, you shared an example where you had used some of this detailed information to make adjustments within segments of your portfolio, increasing profitability, perhaps making adjustments on labor rates and other types of things. Can you share what some of that was?
Sure. We, when you're looking at those different business units, and we have brands that are, I guess, pretty different in how the loss ratios, happen, because some of our European imports, the pricing of even something like a windshield or parts in general is quite a bit higher than some of our domestic products. So we need to drill it down, as Fletcher said, to the individual new and used policies, as well as the over 100,000, and then in the ancillary products like tire and wheel or windshield, be sure we're priced properly there and watching those loss ratios as they're happening, so we can make those adjustments in order to stabilize. And we're obviously trying to make money, but we're also trying to make sure that we stabilize our exposure, kind of watching as trends happen in those repairs.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So there's a lot of active management by each of you as you look at your portfolios, but you're not alone in that. And I introduced Dan at the start of this discussion and his level of expertise. So Fletcher, can you describe sort of a balance that you find in having access and the ability to manage that on a daily or monthly basis, whatever that frequency is, aligned with input from an expert like Dan?
Yeah, so I think the going into the portal is important. So I'm doing that monthly, probably once a quarter. Where the rubber kind of meets the road is where I'll have Dan come in, and we'll get on the phone and we'll go through, maybe over 100,000 mile claims. We'll pull up, 30 days worth of claims and see what's going on. Why did that number change? If it's high, what's going on? Sometimes it's something simple, like we ended up having a couple transmissions or an engine that we had to do. But it also kind of helps us spot maybe trends that are starting to happen. Maybe I have a manager that is not reconditioning the cars like he should. So we enjoy doing that.
And to play off that, sometimes Dan will be proactive about calling or emailing and say, hey, we should look at this, because he sees the trend that's moving in the wrong direction. So he brings it, if I haven't looked at it for whatever reason, he'll bring that to my attention so we can discuss it.
Yeah, the trending of the data is really the key point, especially in a mature reinsurance program. Looking at inception to date numbers is always great, but in the portal that you guys look at, there's year to date and month to date. So you could see inception to date numbers, where it's trending this year compared to inception, along with what did it do last month in terms of claims, loss ratios, etc. The other key element, so that's a big key element you need to look at, not just the inception to date data. The other key element is the retention, the claims paid to the selling dealer, and we monitor that very precisely with our dealers, and they monitor it as well, because we know that if a claim comes back to the selling dealer, like a service contract claim, they're going to pay less. We're going to pay less than if they go elsewhere. Somewhere in the range of, it's a big range, $400 up to $1,000 per claim less if the customer comes back to the selling dealer to get the repair. So that's a key element that needs to be really looked at and monitored and measured.
Yeah, and we, you know, the tool of the pricing with a disappearing deductible has been really effective for us in enticing the customer to come back to us for the repair. Because if they bring it back to one of our service departments, they essentially do not have a deductible to pay, yet if they take it somewhere else, you know, they pay that deductible. So we use that as a tool to create the retention that Dan was speaking of.
Yeah, I think those are both great points, that it's not just having the access to that information, but what you're able to do with that, the levers you're able to pull to affect change in your overall profitability. So Dan, you brought up a good point. You've been in this space for a long time. You've seen a lot of different providers that are in this space. Can you share a little bit, when you go and you're evaluating perhaps a competitor's position and the type of information available, how that may differ when you're trying to analyze or evaluate their program versus ours with the level of access to information?
Yeah, it's really important, the access to the information. It's the real-time data that dealers need to have access to. Like, there's a portal that they can go into anytime, look at the data, look at losses, look at claims, look at retention, look at return, look at investment income, how much money, you know, their bank statements, their trust statements, what the returns are, that all wrap around a profitable reinsurance company. So that the access to the data and the management of the data is the key.
Yeah, so we talk about two aspects of that, access and transparency. So talk, if you would, just for a minute, we'll start with you, Fletcher, on being able to sort of follow the money, right? It's not just having access to data, it's the level of detail and transparency where you can start with amount of premium ceded on a given month and really follow that money all the way through to your bank statement.
Yeah, you know, that's probably where I start, honestly, is when I go in, I'll look how much is seeded per month. I'll look at my losses for the month. And then, you know, you kind of drift over and you say, how much is this really worth? How much money's in there? And so I look at that every month, and I track it like clockwork.
Yeah. Tom, similar?
Yeah, I think to follow up on Fletcher made a point earlier on used car reconditioning, and I look for that data where I see claims on that are early in after a sale of a service contract to a pre-owned customer. Did that car come back quickly? Did we miss something? Did we not recondition that car properly? We shouldn't have those losses, and you know, those are the ones we really want to try to avoid and make sure we've got the job done before we deliver the vehicle. And then, as Fletcher said, just looking at that. The amount of data that's available to us to see how we're earning that premium over time, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, is great information.
I appreciate you sharing your experience with that. It's obviously something that we feel gives you the tools and ability to control these programs, both at the dealer level and your individual stores within your organization, but then combining that with expert consultative opportunities to work with Dan and his colleagues and be able to understand the long-term vision of what that is. These programs are important parts of your overall profitability, and if we finish where we started this conversation, if net is a driving metric and something we're closely monitoring, we need to be doing something similar, and we refer to it as return on premium, to measure the profitability of these. So before we close, any final thoughts or input on that topic?
You know, one of the things that I've also been pretty happy with is I know that Zurich allows us the opportunity to have a B account, if you will, to invest that money with maybe an outside source. But in tracking it like I've been tracking it, really in looking at it with my advisor, because I have a financial advisor that comes in and meets with me quarterly, we've been very happy with the way that the portfolio has done for us and also the return on investment that we receive. So it works for us.
Yeah, and you just touched on something that's important, Tom. I think you take advantage of that as well, is this ability to track your surplus, your underwriting profit, and be able to move that seamlessly then into an investment account where you can make more aggressive investment options or whatever.
Definitely, it's been great to watch the dollars earn over the period of the life of the company. As we've been in it 10 or 12 years, we've seen policies earn out, and we've seen the true return and the investment value we've gained from it, and it's pretty rewarding. In addition to being able to sell a product that we know is going to take care of our customer after the sale, so we know the coverage is good, and we're managing the portfolio properly so that we're going to be there to take care of that in the future.
That's fantastic. Gentlemen, thank you for your input and sharing your experiences with us. We appreciate that. I think in summary, the combination of access and transparency to data combined with expert consultative support creates a very powerful opportunity for you to ensure that you're maximizing your profitability in these programs. We want to thank everybody for sitting in with us today. Thank you. If you have questions, follow up, anything you'd like to get more information about, will be available immediately following, here just off stage or at the Zurich booth, 4501 West. And please feel free to come by. We'd love to have a chance to chat with you. We appreciate the opportunity to share our thoughts with you today. Thanks very much.